Hey, what's up everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed my mock draft, even though I was messing up Stephon Castle's name. I know his name is Stephon. I was just saying Steven because I was reading. It was one of those situations where you're just looking at the page and you see what you wrote. I wrote Steven, but I know the man's name is Stephon. I heard it a million times, so I was very frustrated with that. And listening back to my mock, but ultimately I was pretty pleased with my mock draft. It was a bit chaotic, purposefully chaotic. I could have went a little more traditional as it pertains to the consensus, but I don't expect that this draft is going to provide that. I think this is one of those drafts where you look at your consensus mock drafts all over the place and then you see what actually is going to happen, and it's going to be people mixed up and pushed in different directions that you never thought. Possibly a lot of trades are going to ultimately affect where guys are ultimately expected to go in the draft. So that's why I decided chaos is the more reasonable route. One thing I was looking at in the past was previous drafts. I went all the way back to 1989, I think, just looking at every draft, and the ratio between players that make it and players that don't is not very good. Meaning every draft had like 6 really good players. The rest of the drafts was guys that you never heard of again, didn't make it. Some drafts I look up and I see guys who had short-lived careers where they were stars for the first 3 years and after that they never heard from again, that kind of thing. You did have your LeBron James draft where like you had 7 all Hall of Famers in there. And you had your Kobe Bryant draft where it was like 7 Hall of Famers in there. But you know, for the most part, the ratio between the 60 players that are taken and ultimately how many of them actually pan out is bad as hell. It's worse than I thought. So I understand people who had that in mind saying, oh, you could trade a pick, because a good 7 out of 10 times over the course of the last 40 years, most picks don't pan out. Most. I think a lot of that had to do with bad scouting. In some cases, you see a Hall of Famer in the second round, that kind of thing. It happens from just about once every draft or so you get, or every other draft, I guess is what you say. You'll find somebody massively great in the second round. And I just think this draft is going to provide you more of a ratio of guys who are going to contribute than probably any draft I've seen. I think this draft has more pros in it than probably any other draft. I think it's going to be more guys that actually contribute or even turn into something pretty solid. No stars though. No superstars. Every once in a while, like I said, you see those drafts that have like 6 and 7 superstars in it. I don't think there's any superstars in this draft, but I do think that most of the draft, you can make an argument if they land in the right spot, they should make it in the league. So that's my point of view. We'll see how it actually pans out. Some drafts you still are trying to figure out. I can go back as far as the year 2021 to see guys who I can still see getting better from here or emerging from nowhere, or what have you. Last year's draft is too recent. The year before that draft, believe it or not, is too recent. So it's hard to say what's going to happen with those guys. But all in all, as we look up into the situation that's coming up here, I just think that the Lakers are in a good place, 17, if they don't move around, to probably get somebody they like. We haven't historically drafted very well. I think we've been okay. In certain drafts, we got the best guy in the range, which I think is noteworthy. You know, I remember the Andrew Bynum draft. We got the best guy in the range. I looked up and saw that we had drafted Marc Gasol at the back of a draft and never put him in the uniform, or eventually did when he was at the end of his career. But, like, we had a Hall of Famer there. We didn't actually bring him in. We traded him for his brother, which no one ever regrets, but Marc Gasol was Marc Gasol. We just never used him. You know, just stuff like that. Certain drafts where you'll see that our second guy that we drafted in the back of the draft was better than the first. The year we got George Lynch with like the 9th overall pick, and then took, I think it might have been Eddie Jones. No, it was Nick Van Exel in the second round, that kind of thing. So, you know, we have an okay track record. I've seen some teams that are far worse. Teams like Minnesota and Golden State and Detroit, Denver have historically drafted very poorly, to be honest with you. So, you know, we're not the worst team, but we don't have the greatest track record of drafting. Not the greatest. So hopefully we can pick the right guy in this situation. I had no idea that we had 2 second-round picks the year that Lou Williams and Monte Ellis were drafted. We took 2 other guys. We could have actually selected both of them. Stuff like that, you just look back on and you just be like, oh my God, man. But yeah, man, all in all, I'm looking forward to this draft. These are the dog days of the NBA. The NBA championship has passed. It went to the green people. We don't talk about that. And now we wait on the news for our coaching situation. Many of you may already know that Monty Williams was fired from the Detroit Pistons. You may be interested in wondering what I think the Lakers should do in regards to that. You know, I took my time this morning because I'm not a Monty Williams guy. I wasn't a Monty Williams guy even before he went to the Phoenix Suns and went to the finals. I didn't really particularly think too much of what I saw when he was with New Orleans and Anthony Davis. I just think that historically, and I've been using that word a lot, he's a mediocre coach or provides mediocre results is a better way to put it. He may be a good coach, but the results do not really lend too much to anything except for the Phoenix years. So for me, I'm not a Monty guy. I'm really not. I'm not the guy to come to that says, oh my God, now Monty's available. If it ain't for that Phoenix year, Monty's track record is Doc Rivers-ish. Not to say that he's choked 3-1 deficits away or nothing like that, but leads away rather. But you just see a lot of below average basketball throughout the course of the years that he was coaching these teams. Now, maybe you say the rosters weren't very good. I could argue that. Maybe they didn't have great front offices. I could argue that. With all due respect to our front office, I don't know that we have a great front office. So do you really want to bring a mediocre coach who's not done well with a little to your situation because he was able to do great things with the Phoenix Suns team, but wasn't able to win the championship? And I was angry with his decision. He didn't play Sticks Smith, the power forward, when their main power forward went down. He decided to go undersized and left Giannis a free lane to the basket. Giannis put up historic numbers in the finals. I hated that decision. I hated the Alec Burke decision last year with the Detroit Pistons. You got all these young players, but you're playing Alec Burke like 34 minutes a game, and you're on a 28-game losing streak. I didn't like Monty's decisions. So for me, I just don't look at Monty Williams as some hot commodity. The worst team, arguably in the history of the NBA, he coached last year. They fired him after 1 year on a 10-year contract at $65 million. That's how badly they wanted him out of there. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring him in? Nah, fam, we're going to fire him in a couple years too, guaranteed. So I know AD may want to bring him back. I like Monty Williams, the person. You know what I mean? Monty Williams, the character, the man, the way he speaks to players, the way he interacts with players. I think he's an awesome human being. The things that he's been through, I haven't forgotten. I know exactly what he went through. Both circumstances that were tragic in nature. But I don't think the results are worth the urgency to bring him in. I personally think it's a toss-up between him and a rookie coach like J.J. Redick, but at least with J.J. Redick, I don't have any track record of mediocrity. I don't have any track record at all. So for all I know, J.J. Redick comes in as the next great coach. Monty Williams, I don't think I'm going to get a whole lot out of Monty Williams. I think I'm going to want Monty Williams out of here in about 20 months. So that's my problem. I'm paying less attention to the Phoenix years, and I'm paying more attention to the Detroit years and the New Orleans years, and I ain't seen nothing there. I just didn't. And not only that, but I don't think he ever took the time off that he really wanted to take. Last year, they threw so much money in his face, and it was understood that he wanted to take some time off. He didn't want to coach the Detroit Pistons. That's why they had to throw so much money at him and so many years at him, because he didn't want to coach. So the fact that he never took that time off, I think this is a great time to do it if I'm Monty Williams. You need a break. And you never took it because the money was too great. Now you got $65 million in the bank that's going to be coming to you over the course of the next 9 years. Why jump back into coaching when you didn't want to coach last year? And it showed. It literally showed. So no, I'm not in a rush to bring in Monty Williams. In fact, that's a pretty emphatic no. I think he would be a great assistant coach for the locker room, interacting with players and morale. I think he'd be great for that. as a spiritual leader and somebody on the team that can make everybody feel at home. I think Monty's good at that. But X's and O's, yeah, I ain't seen nothing. And a person being a great person does not mean he's great for the job that I have. No, I'm not a Monty guy, man. Y'all know I'm not. I'm a Monty human being guy. I'm not a Monty coach guy. I think he'd be great in the locker room, but not as the lead man making decisions. No, I don't think so. In fact, I definitely do not believe so. So that's my thing. I think if the Lakers got an opportunity where they know they want to hire J.J. Redick, I mean, I'm not super high on that idea because he doesn't have any history, and that might not be the better choice between him and Monty if it all pans out the worst way. But I just think the Lakers need to probably go with what they were doing, man. You missed out on the UConn coach, and you had your eyes on J.J. Redick. This whole back and forth, yeah, we want him, no, we don't. Yeah, we want him, no, we don't. I just think it ultimately leaves the Lakers looking bad. At the end of the day, it leaves the Lakers looking bad. And now if they try to, flirt around with Monty Williams, that just further sends a bad message to all of those people who are paying attention to the JJ situation to see if JJ's going to be treated right by the Lakers. And we know the Lakers ain't did a great job treating coaches the way that we feel like they should have been treated, or bringing to the table what they ultimately should. So if you want to hire Monty Williams, it's probably a safer bet in a lot of people's eyes, but I don't think you're going to be getting no great championship run out of the situation. I don't. I personally think he doesn't develop young players. And that's another thing. It's like you put him in a team with a bunch of young players that had a historically bad team, to the point where he wanted to run guys that are older on that team. And maybe they were trying to play up Alec Burks' value so they could trade him. That might have been an executive decision. But I just hated watching that. I hated watching the Detroit team during their stretch of losing. They could not string together a good win to save their lives for like a month and a half, 2 months almost. And you want me to hire that coach? No, hell no, I'm not doing that. No, he needs to go somewhere and soul search like he intended to do before the season started last year, before people threw all that money in his face. He don't need to be coaching the high-pressured, high probability of failing, disappointing type thing of the Los Angeles Lakers. He struggled with the Detroit Pistons. You want to send him here with all this pressure we got? Hell no, man. Come on now. Let's get real here. So that's why I'm like, nah, no Monty, man. No Monty. If they want to do homework on Monty and maybe bring him in for an interview, I don't think that looks good, given the fact that people think JJ's going to get the job and now you're going to do this with JJ again. It's just like, how you treating this man? You know what I mean? That's one aspect of it. But just in a nutshell, if there was no J.J. Redick, of course I would say bring Monty in for an interview. But it just seems to me that they desperately don't want to hire J.J. and are looking for every reason not to hire J.J. And if that's the case, then don't hire J.J. But that don't necessarily mean you jump at Monty Williams, the leader of the team that had the worst record, second worst record in the history of the sport. Or second worst losing streak, rather, in the history of the sport. No, I'm not. I'm not going to bring in the guy who had the Pistons losing more than anybody else. So, hell no, man. Hell no for Monty Williams for me. I know a lot of Laker fans are saying, let's go get Monty Williams. And a lot of them just understand that they like names. It's one of those situations where if I only know 3 names and I hear one of them may be available, of course I think that's a good idea. What I need is for somebody to bring me a list of other names. That's what I need. Oh, that guy's available? It's sort of like the Zach Edey thing. Of course, all Laker fans want Zach Edey. And I think Zach Edey may be the second guy on my list in my range, behind Richaun Holmes. Now, if I had never done any homework on DaRon Holmes, then I would think Zach Edey's the best name because everybody knows who he is. We saw what he did in college. He's a big guy, but he doesn't stretch the floor. And he's probably not going to necessarily be durable. You worry about that. DaRon Holmes may be better fit for what it is I need. Not a perfect player, but a better fit for what I need. But I ain't never heard of DaRon Holmes. So, of course, Zach Edey's the best name, and I'm going to vote for Zach Edey, and I'm going to be mad if you don't bring me Zach Edey. Until I see DaRon Holmes next to AD, and then I realize, oh, crap, I did what I was supposed to do. That's just an example. So I just look at that and say, listening to the average fan is probably not the way to go. Being enamored with the average fan's opinion is probably not the way to go. because a lot of people just have never heard of the options that would otherwise be better for them, so therefore they go with what they know. That's the essence of voting in this country and various different things, whether it be presidency or American Idol or MVP. People go with what they know, and they don't know that they don't know all that they should know, so that they can make more informed decisions. That's the importance of information. That's the importance of hiring and paying attention to experts. So never accuse myself of being an expert, but I'm trying to find as much information to help me understand what my options are, rather than just going towards familiarity. Because a lot of times what's familiar to you has been put in your face for a reason, and people have poured a lot of marketing dollars into that so that you would be familiar with what it is that we're talking about. It doesn't necessarily mean it's what's best for you. It just means that that's what the machine is behind in a lot of situations. So I don't believe in popularity, because I don't think people really spend a lot of time on a specific topic to be as informed as they need to be in a lot of cases, but they are very, very loud about what it is that they feel should be done, and as a result they influence people down the wrong path in a lot of cases. So as it pertains to this NBA thing, Monty Williams, that's probably one of those. Oh, Monty's available, hire him. Not paying attention to the fact that his team went on literally a 29-game losing streak last year, and he was playing players on the floor that weren't half as talented as the players he was sitting. Hell no, no thank you. I don't need that player, that coach, just because he has a name that everybody knows. Nah, I'm good. By the way, I wouldn't be upset if the Lakers took Zach Edey. I actually think Zach Edey is a pretty fine option for the Lakers. I just think DaRon Holmes is a better fit for what we have. But if you don't care about fit, then you probably aren't considering how important it is to bring in a certain player with attributes, more so bringing in who you think you should. So there's two different ways the Lakers can go. You can draft for fit, or you can draft for the future in a rebuild. If I'm drafting for the future in a rebuild, DaRon Holmes is a fine player, but he's not the highest upside piece that I think is going to help me 6-7 years from now. He's just a guy that I think fits very well with what it is we're currently constructed to be. If we're not constructed to be that anymore, I don't know that that's the player I'm actually taking. I'm just being honest. And I like him a lot for a lot of situations, but there are guys in that range that just flat out have higher upside or more tools, or whatever the heck you want to say. Maybe you can trade up, get a Ron Holland, who's probably best for our rebuild, but maybe not best for the fit. See what I'm saying? So that's just an example. I don't know that Ron Holland would actually be available to us, but that's what I'm trying to express to people. It's just two different things that your Lakers have to figure out. Do they want to draft for the rebuild, or do they want to draft to further complete the roster they have in place, and making sure they're not removing certain pieces that create bigger holes after plugging that particular hole? Maybe there's a sweet medium. Maybe you take a certain type of guard that fits what we have now and is somebody you want to see in your future. That might be a way to go. A guy like Carter may drop to you, and he can kind of fit both. So I don't know, but at the end of the day, I just don't want to necessarily go with the crowd, especially as it pertains to this coaching thing. Now, if the Lakers find that Monty Williams is who they really want, and they do the homework and they like what they see, and it all makes sense to them, I don't think you should just listen to me because I'm low on him. Maybe this is the year that works out. It worked out for Phoenix that year. I don't know. But for me, nah, I'm not plucking a guy who got fired by the worst team ever and saying that's the guy I need. I'm just not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. Especially for this situation. No, absolutely not. And that's what the Lakers need to always remember. You're not just picking for a basketball team. You're picking for the team that the media hubs around to talk about every day. Twice a day, 3 times a day. Everybody who's trying to make a name for themselves go mention us, go mention LeBron. So make sure who you're bringing to this situation is built for that and not burnt out. You know what I mean? or just in a space where they probably rather just relax and enjoy the money they've been earning. And I think Monty Williams, last time I heard from him, that was exactly what he wanted to do last year. Instead, he ended up going to a bad Detroit team where they ended up breaking records for being horrible. I ain't going to say he shouldn't have taken the money, because he definitely should have. I mean, you see how things worked out today. That's a 1-year, $65 million contract he signed last year. He definitely should have did that. Great life decision. But he still ended up having a crappy year. However much money he made, the basketball year was trash. And it affected how badly I would want him as a coach going forward, unfortunately. But that's just $65 million worth of ineptitude for him to have endured. So, good life decision, but it definitely affected his coaching resume in a very negative way. And listening to some Detroit Pistons fans this morning, they seem to be very ecstatic about him leaving. So why am I hiring him? I'm not. So that is pretty much what I got to say about the Monty Williams aspect of things. Yeah, man. So I'm just looking forward to the draft. Now we're just waiting for the draft to start next week. I think we got like 8 days left. 7 days maybe. I think it's next Wednesday. Yeah, we're 7 days away. I'm imagining the Lakers have some focus in on what they want to do there. I've been hearing rumors about us possibly moving up. I don't know how realistic that is, but I would like for the Lakers to make a strong effort in moving up, especially if they can move up in the high 10s. If they can move into the top 10, that would be great. If they can move into the top 5, that would be amazing. I think the chances of them getting somebody they absolutely love doesn't suck, man. It doesn't suck if you get into that top 10. So, given the fact that we are a team that's not going to have a pick next year, given the fact that we were a team that wasted our pick last year, basically, not taking the best overall player available, I think the Lakers should try their very best to get in that top 10, if at all possible. So that's what I think, man. I'm looking at my mock draft list here. Stephon Castle, not Stephen Castle. I would love to see him as a Laker if something like that would be possible. Listening to some Washington fans, they seem like they want him at number 2. The fans do, not necessarily the ownership or the GM. They might have a different way of going. But I was listening to a podcast last night. Had 4 people on tab. All of them basically have him as their number 2. So if for some reason the Washington Wizards take Stephon Castle, I wouldn't be entirely surprised by that at this point. I think he's high on a lot of people's lists, man. And there's less questions about him than there are about some of the other players who are expected to be drafted ahead of him, which are not many. Zachary Reese-Sachet, Reed Shepard, of course, Alex Sarr. A couple people said they would take Alex Sarr over him, but nobody said on that panel that they would take Reese-Sachet over him, which I thought was pretty interesting. So if Stephon Castle over the next 7 days shoots up to number 2 overall, don't be surprised by that. Don't be surprised by that, because they do have a lot of support for taking him at 2, and they have the role for him to play a point guard. They don't have nothing going on in Washington, like literally nothing. Jordan Poole, nobody's going to build around Jordan Poole. They drafted a wing last year, but he's going to be a role player. So if ever there was a place Stephon Castle can go to be who it is he hopes to be, which is a big point guard. It's a blank canvas like Washington. So maybe they should take him. Maybe they should. I haven't taken Ron Holland, but I think I was just like trying to be different. I don't think they'll actually do that. I don't think as many people have Ron Holland above Reed Shepard and Alex Sarr and Reese-Sachet. I don't honestly think that, but I just think that he's probably the guy that I think could come into a place like Washington and make it his own. But I feel the exact same way about Stephon Castle. He would have been just as good of a pick for me in this mock. So maybe if I did the mock today after watching that, I probably would consider putting Stephon Castle at number 2, to be honest with you. Which is why I kept putting off my mock draft, because I knew things would change. But yeah, I probably would switch that today if I were to do the mock today. So that's what I want to say, man. Stephon Castle may be going to top 3. He may be going to top 3. I don't think the Rockets necessarily are paying attention to him, but Washington seems to be. And I say it like this. For me, if I'm the GM, I'm trying to pay attention to people like them who make these podcasts, people like myself who don't make no money off of this but are passionate about it, and try to see what the temperature is in regards to what fans want, and then listen to my scouts as well. So if they saw what I saw, they may be higher on Stephon Castle this morning than they may have been, just off the strength of watching what those people were saying about the team. So yeah, that's interesting to me, man. I try to tap in every once in a while to other team markets to see what they're interested in. I think it would be smart for all of us to do that, because at the end of the day, I think these GMs and these owners are listening to these people too, and it could help predict what other teams are going to do or maybe willing to do. So, for example, if we listen to a Pistons podcast and they're super excited about Reed Sheppard, you trading up to 7 to get Reed Sheppard may not be high enough to get him, for example. So you just want to keep your ear to the street. Is basically what I'm saying. So, yeah, man. I would like our player to be two-way, man. I can't stress this enough. For my Lakers, salute to Kobe Bennett that just passed. Two-way player is really at the top of the list for me. I don't really need a one-way guy, man. And that's kind of what I had in mind with Stephon Castle going as high as 2. Is I just don't know that he fits the bill as a full two-way player. He's an excellent defensive player, and he has extreme offensive strengths, but some extreme offensive weaknesses, including shooting the ball. And if you have floor stretching issues, I don't know if that's best for you. But given the fact that they do have some snipers over there in Washington, they should be able to weather that storm. They definitely have some shooters. So, yeah, that's something to consider for them. But for us, I want a two-way player, man. On my list here, I had us taking DaRon Holmes. I consider him two-way. Some people, I was listening to someone say they were concerned about his size. 6'10", 221, I'm not worried about that. I think he has enough heaviness to him at 221 with the ability to get stronger. And 6'10" is pretty good height. That's very good height. It ain't Zach Edey at 7'4", 306, but you have to weigh that against Zach Edey's lack of three-point shooting. Although I did see a picture of him, not a picture, but some footage of him shooting a 3 and making it. That's going around, so maybe he can be very sturdy from behind the arc after all someday. And if that's the case, then there's nothing keeping me from taking Zach Edey. If Zach Edey can stretch the floor or at least be a threat from behind the arc, then he's the pick for me. I'm looking for somebody who's his height, well, nobody's his height, 7'4", 306, but somebody heavy enough and tall enough to deal with Jokic, to deal with Wemby. So, if Zach Edey's not going to be a complete liability on both sides from behind the arc, which he will be defensively because he can't guard the 3, which is why you probably pass on him. But, there's so many other strengths that he provides, including being massive in the paint, that you're interested in. He's a drop coverage kind of guy. And to be honest with you, with the presence of Anthony Davis on the team, you probably just try to switch off Anthony Davis to trek out to the place where he would otherwise need to be in the three-point range, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that actually equates if you have multiple spacers, but I'm thinking of a team like the Denver Nuggets. You can have, if they're put on the floor at the same time. I know people don't like putting Anthony Davis at the 4, but if you have Zach Edey and Anthony Davis on the floor at the same time, maybe Zach Edey can guard Jokic in the paint, and as he starts to trek out to the 3, you put Anthony Davis out there to try to defend him out there. I don't know how that switching process would actually equate, but that would kind of be the idea that I think could potentially be okay. So, yeah, man. Zach Edey ain't the worst pick for the Lakers, man. He really ain't. I think if anybody can help us guard these heavy dudes that we have no chance of guarding right now, he should be the guy that you consider. I think DaRon Holmes is more so important for the offense and the spacing because he can shoot the 3 so well, but I don't know that I can put him on Jokic necessarily, have any success at all. I don't know that. So, none of these players are perfect, man. This is not a perfect draft. You're not going to find a perfect player. But when you really consider what I think the Lakers' most important need is, it's heaviness in this front court. Height, length, and weight. Literally weight, man. So, if we could get Klingon, that would be great. If we can get Edey, I think that would be very good. But I think DaRon Holmes ultimately fits the spacing demands. So, that's really what it is, man. I'm not big on Filipowski. I've seen him get pushed around a little too much, man. I'm cool. Yves Messi, very high motor from what I understand. I haven't done as much homework on Yves Messi. I did some homework, but nothing extensive. So, freshman, I don't know if he could help you as quickly as maybe we want him to. 6'11", 223, not much bigger than DaRon Holmes. Doesn't stretch the floor. I'm not necessarily excited about Yves Messi's fit on this team. Lob threat, DeAndre Jordan-ish type guy, that kind of thing. Rebounder, good screen setter. I'm not overly excited about bringing him to the Lakers. I'm not. I'm not overly excited. Run, jump, dunk players. I just want my centers to have more skill in 2024. I really do. It could be very helpful, but there's a serious low floor to players like that. Like it's only but so much you're gonna ask them to do. They handing the ball off from behind the arc instead of looking to create any problems. I just don't need any of that. I already got that with too many situations already on my team. With what's that guy from the New Orleans Pelicans? Jackson Hayes does that kind of stuff. Wide open from behind the arc, and ain't even looking to shoot. It just doesn't create any threat, and I need that threat on the floor for my Lakers. So that's why I just think DaRon Holmes is probably the guy, man. And for people who are saying Khalil Ware, I just think Khalil will probably be gone already. And I don't think Khalil Ware can help you as soon as you need him to, and I don't think his motor, coupled with the fact that I don't think he's fully developed, really helps us for our timeline. I don't think so. He's not lively. Not at all. He looks like lively in terms of his body, but he don't have that type of power. He's not that type of fast. He's just not that guy. That's not who he is. So I think people, in thinking that Khalil Ware is going to be lively, are going to be disappointed. If he gives us what he gave Indy last year, you're not going to be happy. That's what I believe about Khalil Ware. You like the idea of Khalil Ware, just like I've heard people say. The body should be able to do more than the person is actually going to do when you get him out there. And so that's the problem with Khalil Ware. Just going to leave you disappointed. You know what I mean? And that's what I think he's shown us thus far. Now, if he develops into something greater, I've heard people talk about people's motor, and then they end up being great. Anthony Edwards is the best example of that. But I don't think Khalil Ware is going to be that. I think the footage of him being lax on the offensive end, defensive end, rebounding end, just a laziness about his overall get down. And I don't know if you could ask a guy like that to come into this type of situation for our needs and our timeline and expect him to snap out of all of those different things. You're just not going to. You're more than likely going to see him sitting a lot next year. And that's not what we need to bring in the center to do, to be completely honest with you. Now, 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, if he reaches his ceiling, that's a monster. And you're very happy you got him. But by then, Bron is gone, and you're a 21 basketball team with no pick. I mean, it's just, I don't need Khalil Ware to be reaching his ceiling when our team is trash and ain't no superstars on the team. And it's just, that's not what I'm bringing a center in for. If I want that type of dynamic, I'm going to go with a higher upside player that I like a little more than just getting Khalil Ware because this year's team needs a center in there for it. I don't think he's the player for that. Especially if Rob Dillingham's on the damn board and Devin Carter's on the board and Cody Williams may be on the board, that kind of thing. Like, I'm not taking Khalil Ware over those people for our situation. If I want a high upside piece, there are higher upside pieces. It should, in theory, be available. Even Bub Carrington, I'd probably take over Khalil Ware if I want that type of deal. So, Jerry McCain is on it's a lot of dudes on this thing that I think could potentially reach their ceiling for my rebuilding situation. Isaiah Collier, even though I'm not an Isaiah Collier guy, him 4 years from now, I probably want just as much as Khalil Ware. So it's like, Khalil Ware, the body and the height and the length, exciting. The person inside of that body, I don't know if he's going to actually do anything. I'm just going to be honest with you, man. So that's what I'm worried about with Khalil Ware. If you could take the spirit of Patrick Beverley and place it in the body of Khalil Ware, now we talk. But that's not who's in there. And so hopefully Khalil can make us all look like fools. But I just see too much consistency in type of energy with him. I don't want to right now. Let somebody else do it. There's a lot of that going on in his tape, and I'm not up for that. I grew up on Shaq, and I keep on harking back to this. I grew up on Shaquille, and then we brought in Powell, and that was a letdown for me as it pertains to the energy that he was providing until Powell came around and proved himself. But we were frustrated with Powell the first year because we were getting a lot of that anti-Shaq motor. I'm not signing up for anti-Shaq motor. Even Anthony Davis, to a point, gives us some low motor stuff. I'm not making his main backup a low motor guy. That's not happening, bro. It's not happening. Especially when I got Yves Messi and Zach Edey on the board who have high motors. Guys who are going to dunk the ball every time they get a chance to fly around. I'm more likely to take Yves Messi than Khalil Ware
for what we need, and as it pertains to energy and power and what we're used to and respect in regards to the type of center that we've had in the past. So that's really what it is. Motor means a lot to me when they talk about a big man. We got too many signs of guys that we thought had big bodies that didn't provide the oomph, so to speak. I'm not looking for that. No Kyle Filipowski, kind of the same problem. I'm cool, man. Give me a high motor guy, man. DaRon Holmes fits. I think the motor is there on both sides of the floor. He's not the athlete that Yves is. He's not the power player that Zach is. But the stretching of the floor makes up the difference there. Khalil Ware can shoot the ball, but not as well as what would make it so that you put up with all that other stuff. Put it like that. But it is, at the end of the day, he probably has a higher ceiling than those guys because of the 7'4" length. You know, but I just got a feeling that a lot of the pro Khalil Ware people, if he comes in, he's the same person he was last year, they're going to hate him. And they're going to want him out of here fast. I've seen this movie with this fan base too often. Yeah, bring me that guy. And we get him. Oh, no. We did it with Darvin Ham. It's like, nah. I want to challenge all the Laker Nation and all Laker fans. Do your homework. Please. Do your homework, bro. Because we have too many times welcomed crap that we thought we wanted until we got it here and then we hated it. Let's stop doing that to ourselves. Please. So that's what I got to say there, man. After doing homework on Khalil Ware, I'm pretty low on him being a good player for the Lakers right away. And if I'm picking up a center, that's exactly what I need him to be. So, yeah, that's my take on that, man. He's going to fall if it's up to me. A little further than probably most people should think. I have him going 12 to the OKC Thunder because I think they really need a center, and I think he's the highest level center, and they got a bunch of young players and a bunch of guys, different things that they kind of bring him to, and he'll fit that a little bit. So I had him going 12 to OKC. It's a lot of ball handlers, lobbing the ball, different stuff like that, a young environment that's probably best for him. So that's kind of a situation where I can see Khalil Ware going. Maybe even Sacramento playing behind Sabonis could be really interesting because you're not asking him to be the center of the future, just kind of asking him to be whoever he's going to be. So before a situation with LeBron and AD, yeah, man, the closer we get to the draft, the further I feel away from wanting to draft Khalil. So that's after homework, lots of homework being done there. So yeah, man, that's really where my head is, you guys. Just looking at some of these names. I would love for the Lakers to get another second-round pick. Maybe even trade the 55th pick to get a little higher. But not necessarily to draft Bronny James, ladies and gentlemen. It's not my focus at all when looking at the second round. I'm more so interested in Ulrich Chomchi and Cam Christie and Pacome Dadier and Adam Bonet, especially if you don't get a center in the first round. Osari Ishidargo is an interesting name. As I've mentioned before, Enrique Freeman, somebody I like a lot in this. Trendon Flowers is a player I absolutely love a lot in this draft. Ryan Dunn, even though I don't think he fits on the Lakers because he can't offensively play, he's probably the best defender in the draft, maybe in the last couple of drafts. So, you know what I mean? If you walk away with a second-round pick and you draft one of those guys, I'm excited for us. Jalen Bridges, I think a player could probably help us right away. So, if I can get a couple second-round picks, it ain't because I just have to get Bronny James. No, I don't need the piece that Bronny is as much as I need some of these other pieces. If I'm bringing in Bronny James, it's because I'm afraid LeBron James is going to leave. Just being honest. And I like Bronny. I'd like him to be our undrafted bring-in. But as far as me just, I have to secure this player. Nah, not without the politics and the circumstance. No, I don't have to secure that player, man. That urgency in the second round is built for players like Trendon Flowers and AJ Johnson and Pacome Dadier. Those are players I must have if I'm talking about the damn second round. You know, or if a guy like Furphy falls to the second round, it's first round talent. So that type of stuff. That's the truth about the second round. Yeah, man. I'm super huge on Ulrich Chomchi. I don't expect him to help us till 2030. But if you bring that dude to us, put him on this team, I will be ecstatic, man. I just think that once Anthony Davis leaves, if this guy's coming into his own, he can help us in ways that Anthony does on the defensive end. I think he's going to be fantastic in that way. Also, it's noteworthy to mention that Khalil Ware like Anthony Davis, is a player that tends not to foul very much. And for a center, that's a really good trait. So that's a positive for the Khalil people. I've talked a lot about his negative, but he doesn't foul as much as a lot of centers. I think that is a very, very golden trait to mention. So that's something I heard last night that I was not necessarily aware of. So for the positive aware folks, that's something to say. But yeah, man, I like some of these names, man. In the second round, I'm much more high on me being pleased with the second round. It doesn't mean that I think they have higher ceiling than some of these guys in the first round, but the second round names excite me more, man. They just do. Their floors may be lower, their ceilings may be lower, but I think I'm going to be happy with what I expect them to be, more so than I'm going to be happy with what I expect some of these other guys who are allegedly better to be. I really think that, man. I just think, and I mean, like, if, for example, if I'm trying to pick from a fleet of superstars and I don't expect that they're going to actually reach their ceiling, and then I look at a fleet of role players and wonder if they can exceed their ceiling, I think that's what we're looking at here. Role players that I think can exceed their ceiling, and star players that I think they're probably lower, probably going to do worse than we expect. And that's the story I think this draft ultimately going to be about. So we'll see, man. Yeah, we'll see. I'll turn this video into something a lot longer than I thought it would be. But I'm very enamored with what I'm seeing here. I'd be super excited if the Lakers can walk away with a two-way wing, or a center who can stretch the floor, or trade down out of this first round entirely and get me like 6 of these second rounders. That would be dope as hell too, to be honest with you. I don't think you actually do that, but like I said, there's just so many names in the second round that I'm feeling. AJ Johnson, like a super high level young point guard that I think we'll be happy to have 4 years from now. I really do, man. Jamal Sheed, I think people are going to love his energy and his motor. And the athleticism of a Trenton Flowers must be on my G League team, especially if he goes undrafted. He's the one guy that I want the Lakers to make it a point to bring in. Bring him in, man. If Trenton Flowers doesn't get drafted, it's probably the first person I'm calling. Get him in here, man. So these are the things I'm talking about, man. This first round's cool, you know what I'm saying? But the second round is where I actually think I'll be more pleased. Just overall, man. Not better talent, but more likely to make me happy with who I expect them to be. So that's pretty much what I got to say, man. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.